On this rainy episode of 4uz-fe Mechanic, I say this. Welcome back to 4uz-fe Mechanic, where we're on episode 13. Luckily I'm not superstitious. And then I say this. Yay! I didn't set fire to the car or myself. And then this happens. That is a bit of a nightmare. Bollocks. Stay tuned to see exactly what's gone wrong and how we're going to fix it. Welcome back to 4uz-fe Mechanic, where we're on episode 13. Luckily I'm not superstitious. Where we need to have a quick recap on some bits we've done since I saw you guys last, and then we are welding the firewall. So just quickly before we crack on with template making and welding of the firewall, this is what we've been up to since I've seen you last. We have reconditioned the steering rack. Not only does it look a bit nicer because it was looking fairly crusty, we've got new track control arms. So the whole thing's been stripped, cleaned, new arms, Loctite and the washers, all that jazz, re-greased and then put back together after a little bit of paint. So it's looking a lot tidier, and it's allowed us to also fit our Jap Speed extended tie rod ends as well. The car is going to need the mother of all wheel alignments because the suspension is all over the place. That's not something obviously we can do on the driveway, and actually we're a long way away from thinking about wheel alignment. That's the least of our issues at the moment. Right, apologies for the wind guys, I've tucked into the engine bay as much as I can. But it's actually getting really windy out, so we'll just have to do the best we can. So if we focus on the task at hand, which is boxing in this part of the firewall before we then move on to the trickier side, which is trying to put this mess back together. We'll just focus on this guy. If you've watched any of the previous episodes, you will know that we struggled a bit with clearance over here. The pipes, they were much longer than this, and the aircon pipes were getting in the way of the back corner of the engine, mostly the rocker cover. Hence why we've had to cut out, you can see, a lot of these parts and box them in an inch or so further back. Now, we are looking at the back of the heater matrix, and luckily, the piece that was really getting in the way unscrews. Ta-da! This guy. So you can see that he's screwed in there, and there was another screw just out of shot, just up there, and actually it was that's really getting in the way, so we can just unscrew him, take him off, and that means that not only can we box straight from here straight up, we can actually cut these pipes back a little further. We can connect the flexi hose to these aluminium pipes inside the car. Now I know having a join from solid pipe to flexi inside the car where we could potentially leak coolant is not the best idea, but we'll use good quality hose and good clamps, and it should be fine. And hey, look, if it springs a leak, I guess we'll just take the dashboard out again. Wouldn't be the first time. Something I would add is getting this support bar and the heater matrix and the fan and all that assembly in and out of the car is an absolute pain. It's actually heavier than it looks. It's really awkward. You've obviously got the risk of hitting the windscreen, so you've got to be careful of that. It's sharp. It's actually gone a bit rusty outside, but we'll fix that. And it's obviously it's a really tight fit, and you can see it scratches the paint when you put it in. It's a real pain in the backside, so the less times we have to take this in and out, the better really. We can take it out now, which is great, but we'll have to put it back in to do a lot of the measurements for the steering column and boxing all that in. But for now, we're going to take him out and we are going to focus on this hole, get it welded up. Right, as always, the best way to fix the hole that we're looking at is with a cardboard template, and then, as we've done previously, is transport that template onto steel. Today's template of choice is pizza box, actually, ham and mushroom. It's very nice. And that is not bad at all. Apologies, it's now super noisy, but that's our steel template. You can see we're going to have to put in a side piece, but that'll be nice and easy. Now this, you can see, is not perfect. Can't get a good angle on that, but the metal is quite wavy, as you can see. But that's okay, we can fix that with a hammer, no problem. Alright, after a quick trip to the pillar drill, we've got 2 holes. These are the right size to accept the grommets that we've got and then fit the pipe through of the right diameter, so that's perfect. It also makes a really handy hole for me to put my clamp on while we're welding, so oh, it's going to fall out now. It's pretty handy. Right, plan is to start in this bottom corner, get it tacked in here, and get it tacked in here, bend the metal with a hammer, get it all straightened up, weld it in. Yay! I didn't set fire to the car or myself. And jokes aside, this car has been on fire twice, which I don't think we got on film, and I've been on fire once. So yay for me. And actually, that's not terrible welding either. It's not bad at all. So that's the bottom bit sorted. Lovely. So now the plan is we will work our way across the top, and then we're going to have to try and sort, this is going to be warm now, this bit out, but knocking it in and out with a hammer, straightening it up, getting that welded, that'll be perfect. Then we'll do our little infill piece, and this bit is done. Well, that's not bad at all. It's not perfect, but considering what we were working with, I'm pretty happy with that. Bit of paint, bit of seam sealer, it'll be lovely. Right. Let's get a template for this little corner piece. Cardboard template. Steel. Yay. Right, all we've got to do now is weld this guy in, and this little bit is done. And here, ladies and gentlemen, is a good reason why when you're welding you remove everything, not just the carpets. Because if you punch a hole in the metal you're welding and a piece of burning weld drops down onto your loom, you will set fire to it. That is a bit of a nightmare. Bollocks. So we've managed to completely cook 3 plugs and damage some wiring. This one, I have no idea what it is, was labelled. Sadly, we can't read the label anymore. So I must have labelled this for a reason 18 months ago. So I have a feeling we need this, whatever it might be. That sucks. This also, I'm not really sure what this guy does. He's toast. And this box, I would say that's fairly toasted. And there's a couple of other wires that are not too bad. We could probably clean them up and tape them. But we're not going to know exactly what we've lost, I guess, until we find a wiring diagram. We figure out what these are. If we're super lucky, we don't need them, but I have a feeling I kept them for a reason. Or we plug everything back in until we find what's not plugged in, and then we know what we broke. That is a pain though. Still, it doesn't change the fact that we need to weld up this hole, so I guess at least let's finish that. Alright, bit of paint, bit of seam sealer and a couple of grommets, and this is what we've got. Now, if we hadn't have set fire to the wiring loom while welding this in, I'd be giving that a solid B, maybe a B+, because that's worked nicely. However, we set fire to the cast, so I'm giving myself an F. F for fire. We are nearly done for the day. Paint and seam sealers drying up, but I thought before we pack in we would have a quick crack at this. This metal actually is very, oh you can't see, is very thin. It doesn't look that thin on the video, but I can assure you it's really flimsy, and not the easiest to weld. Now you can see this piece came out to here. We had to cut this piece back to make space for the engine. So what I did initially is cut tabs and then bend them flat, cut this bottom piece off, and then just push it down and then weld it across. Before we finish episode 13 by checking out the finished firewall, let's talk about the box that we set on fire. This is the remote central locking box, and it's not a simple fix. You can't just replace this guy. He is coded to the other parts of the dashboard, the key, the ECU, all sorts of stuff. So to replace this guy, you need an entirely new lock set, keys, ECU, absolutely everything. So I think, for the time being at least, we're just going to put up with not having remote central locking. It will be mildly annoying, but a full lock set for these cars is a couple of £100. And there's many other interesting things we can spend a couple of £100 on. So for the moment, we've got no central locking, but whatever, we'll just cope with that. Now, we can't be too sad with that, because check out the finished firewall. Look at this guy. Okay, so this is where our heater matrix goes. You can see we've got our grommets in, if it's going to focus. Hoses are out. We've got various connections to make sure the hoses run a nice, neat route, and they have to go actually up behind the engine. But we've got all the pipe work laid out. That's going to be nice and simple. Our fuel hose is going to run. You can see we've got some red dots on the firewall here. With the engine out, I spent the time, come on, focus. I spent the time marking up where we're drilling holes for P-clips. So when the engine comes out, which it's going to in about 5 minutes time, I can come in and drill all my holes for P-clips. Over this side, you can see we've got great clearance. Again, we've got all our marks for our clips. And down here, it's going to be horrible to film. I bet we can't see. No, we're just filming fluff. But down there, oh, there we go. Slightly yellow where we hit it with some paint, but we've got the original rubber grommet for the steering column. It's in, it fits, and everything clears nicely. The engine is in, he's on his own stands, everything's in, it fits, it clears, and it bolts to the gearbox. So, before we properly end, I'm going to show you all the things we've got for the next episode. So, episode 14 is going to be brakes. Now, we've already reconditioned the front calipers. They've been cleaned, painted, new seals, all of that. And actually they're already back on the car. But we've got currently no way to connect the calipers to the pedal set that we're putting in. The original lines obviously don't fit, they're nowhere near close. So we need to make our own brake and clutch line, which is what all of this stuff's for. We've got various bits that we need. We've got different sizes of P-clips. We've got flexible braided hose. We've got 4-way T-pieces with hydraulic brake light switch, because obviously the manual one on the original RX pedal is now in the bin, so we need that guy. We've got fittings, we've got tools to flare the copper line, we've obviously got copper line, and RX8 flexible Goodrich lines to connect the solid pipe that we're making to the calipers. So, oh, and heat sleeve for the brake pipes and the fuel pipe that goes anywhere near either of the exhaust manifolds, because I'm a bit paranoid about the heat build-up and the amount of space that we've got. So this does a really good job. So next episode, all of this is going in the car. I will see you then.